Hi everybody. It is homework run through tutorial time. This week we're working on phonology, which is chapter 3 in language files. And we're going to do the exercises that I assigned for homework. So I'll just do the first one on each exercise so that you can see what kinds of answers I'm looking for, and I can help you solve the first one so you can kind of get a sense of how to do it. You will need your IPA charts that are in the previous chapter. On page 57 is the consonant chart that you used for phonetic transcription, and page 59 is the vowel chart, and then I think on the opposite page 60 maybe there's another vowel chart. Okay, so we'll use those, and phonology helps us understand how sounds change when we're talking, basically, that we don't pronounce the phonemes all the time, right? So we might think that the sound B is in a word, but what we're actually pronouncing when it comes out of our mouth is P. And these have to do with the phonological rules of the language that we're speaking. And once you start to see that there's that kind of hidden system working, you realize that everything we've been taught about language is kind of wrong, right? That we don't say what we spell, that we don't form words in the way that we thought we did, and how are we going to kind of deal with all of this? And so this will all become relevant when we start talking about dialects and different varieties of English and that sort of thing. All right, so I'm going to turn my email off because it's dinging at me and you don't need to hear that. Here we go. Okay, I'm trying to keep a positive face after that crazy debate last night, so I hope you all are with me and not feeling too overwhelmed at this point. This is a difficult homework assignment. I know last week was difficult, but this is it. So once we finish this homework assignment, there are no more weekly homeworks, and we've gotten through everything that you are supposed to cover in an intro to linguistics class. So you've gotten through all the theoretical linguistics. I will feel like you have done what you came to the class to do, and then after this is the more fun stuff, in my opinion. But I love all of linguistics. Okay, so number 9 on page 142. So we're in language files 142, number 9, and this is Ukrainian. Ukrainian was that's not 100% true, but when I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Ukraine, I went and took Ukrainian classes every day for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, for about a month or so, 2 months maybe. But I don't speak much Ukrainian. I ended up going to a Russian-speaking city and learning Russian. But I can help you with this. All right. So the question says, look at the following. Sorry, I'm going to be looking at my book for a minute. Ukrainian words containing the sounds s. All right, so they're in phonetic transcription, so they're not letters. They're sounds s. It's palatalized, so we don't have this phoneme in English, but the tongue raises to the roof of your mouth, so s, sh, and then palatalized sh, so sh. I can't pronounce it properly, and it's really hard in Ukrainian because the difference between palatal and non-palatal changes the meaning of the word. So for an English speaker who isn't used to making palatalized sounds, it can be really hard because the words are when you say them, they're gonna sound the same, and so people won't understand you. All right, so the sounds palatalized s and palatalized sh are palatalized variants of s and sh, s and sh. Sorry. See the discussion in 2.46. The words have been arranged to help you identify minimal pairs. So generally, when you have a problem like this, you need to write out the segments, the phonemes in the word, but we're not going to do that for this one because they've already done it for you. Okay, So the first question, number one, what minimal pairs can you identify in these words? So if you look in A, so we're just going to go, oops, that was my pencil sharpener. We're just going to look down the list of words. So you see something that looks like lish. Is that right? Lish, and then lish. Oh, I'm sorry, lis. I thought that was kind of weird. Lis, leash, lish. And we don't have a palatalized sh there. All right. So it looks like maybe we have a minimal pair there, but that would answer one of the other questions they ask you. So I'm going to skip that one. Then we have mishka, miska. I keep doing that. Miska and mishka. So that looks like a minimal pair. Okay, so we need to think about what is a minimal pair. A minimal pair is when you have two words that have different meanings and varied on only one sound. So in English, a minimal pair is cat and bat, right? So the words are exactly the same except for that first phoneme, b and k. Tree and free are minimal pairs in English. I was trying to think of one that has two syllables instead of one. Well, anyway, I'm sure that you can think of something because everything that's coming to my mind does not work right now. Okay, but two words that vary by one sound. So miska and mishka are minimal pairs in Ukrainian because they only vary in the s, sh sound, right? And then we have sapka and shapka. So again, we have exactly the same word except for that initial sound. So those are also minimal pairs. So those are two examples in the list. You can keep going and see which other ones are. And then we can look, so say we look at the miska, mishka example. And then we look at the third word that they give us in that line, which is the palatalized sh, which is mush. I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce it with a weird Russian accent. Mushi, mice. So the palatalized, so that word has the same meaning, but is not the same sound, does not have the same phonemes as miska and mishka. So it is not a minimal pair with miska and mishka, right? So mishi is a different word altogether. It's not part of the minimal pair, minimal triplet. So don't get confused just because they put the words in the column there. They have to have the same sounds, right? All right, and then is there a minimal triplet? There is, and then you need to find it and show what it is. Okay, so now the question 3, which 3 of these 4 sounds are in contrastive distribution? That means which 3 of the sounds create a minimal pair or create a meaningful difference in the language. So bat and cat, b and k in English, if you change those phonemes, then they're going to change the meaning of the word. So bat and cat are not the same word, right? But if I say, if I am an American English speaker and somebody else is a British English speaker and I say butter and that person says butter, it's still the same word. It's just that the sound in the middle changed. Okay, does that make sense? So that, in that case, that sound, those sounds are allophones of the phoneme t, right? That the phoneme t just gets pronounced differently because of where it is in the word. It's between 2 vowels. So butter and butter are the same exact word. They're not minimal pairs. They just have an allophone, or the T sound becomes pronounced differently because of the accent or the dialect that's being spoken and because of the position of the phoneme in the word. Okay, I know that's a lot to take in. So in this example, Miska and Mishka are minimal pairs, so that tells us that S and Sh are phonemes in the language in Ukrainian, right? So S and Sh make a meaningful difference in the word because bowl is a different word than little mouse, right? Miska is a completely different thing than Mishka in Ukrainian. And it would be in English too, right? Because we have sip and ship. So these two sounds are phonemes in English as well. However, let me see if I can get this going for us. So we know that S and Sh are contrastive. That means they are phonemes in Ukrainian. And then because we have the minimal triplet, we know that one more sound is contrastive. So I'll leave it for you to figure that out. There's one more sound that creates a meaningful difference in Ukrainian that would make a new word, right? When you, instead of just S, Sh, there's one more. Okay, one of these sounds occurs only before a particular vowel. So it is an allophone that occurs because of the sound that comes after it. What is the sound and what is the vowel? Which words indicate this? So the sound they're looking for is the palatalized sh. So I'll leave it to you to figure out what vowel comes after palatalized sh. And so what sound becomes palatalized sh in the environment of that vowel. So because there's that vowel, the sh gets pronounced as a palatalized sound. Does that make sense? I know it's blowing your mind. It's a lot to take in. So just try to answer each question step by step and go back in the chapter and see if you can figure out what we're doing here, okay? Another example maybe in some dialects of English and in Russian as well, we might have, we have something called devoicing of final consonants. So if we think about all these phonological rules, that's what we're kind of talking about this week. One of the examples I like to give is I used to live in Starkville, Mississippi. And when I lived there, there was only one taxi service. So this was 10 years ago. And I often had to fly out early in the morning at the first airplane that would take me to Atlanta. And that was like at 5:30 in the morning. And so this poor guy who drove the one taxi kind of got used to me, and he wouldn't come get me unless I gave him a wake-up call, basically. So I'd have to call the taxi service and get him to come get me at 5 o'clock in the morning. And he always answered his phone, Bulldog Cap, okay? And so it was cab, right? Is the phoneme, buh, that's what the word that we think we're saying, but he would devoice the buh and make it a voiceless bilabial stop. So he would change it to puh. So bulldog cap. And in fast speech, that would be kind of normal. It's also a part of the dialect or the variety of English that he spoke. And in Russian, we get this too. So if you're familiar with classical music, you might know the composer Rachmaninoff, right? His name in English is often spelled with two F's, but in Russian it's a V, it's a V. So the actual phoneme is V, but because it's at the end of a word, it gets pronounced as F because it's devoiced, okay? So I'm just trying to give you some examples of how these phonological rules work, that because a sound is at a certain place in a word or behind a vowel, in front of a vowel, after a consonant, after a nasal sound, it will change the sound of the phoneme. And that's when we have this kind of allophone relationship. This is all in the chapter. I just know it's kind of hard to understand by reading it. All right, and hopefully the LingSpace videos also help with this a little bit. Okay, so let's look at 13. The next thing that they want you to do is kind of classify sounds so that we can start to think about, well, what do all these sounds that we pronounce have in common? So 13A is list the members of the following natural classes of English sounds. So I'm looking for alveolar obstruents. So I need to use my chart here. I don't expect you to have this memorized. So if we go to page 57, 57. I realized I did not write the answers out for the problem 1, so for problem 9, so I can go back and do that if you need it. So you're not here to tell me if you need it or not. Okay, quickly, Lynn. Okay, so alveolar obstruents. So I've got my chart on page 57 right here. Okay, so I'm looking for alveolar. Here's this, my column of alveolar sounds. There are a lot of them in English. And then I'm looking for obstruents. So it's not on my chart, but I know that obstruents are a certain type of sound. And I should have looked this up before I did it because I don't always remember these things. See if I can come. Okay, I'm gonna pause and make sure I get the right thing here. Sorry, so I had to start a new video, but there is a so we were talking about alveolar obstruents. There is a handy glossary in the back of the book, just in case, because I was going to have to dig through the chapter to figure out which sounds belong to obstruents. So obstruents are the ones that have a closure, the stopping of the airflow, which I knew, but I couldn't remember exactly which ones fit. So stops, fricatives, and affricates are what we're looking for. So then to answer number, I think we're on 13, what I need to do is find in my list of alveolar sounds which ones are obstruents. So the stops are t and d, fricatives s and z, and there are no affricates. So my answer to number 13 is going to look like, so alveolar obstruents are going to be t, d, s, and z. And that's what your answer should look like, okay? So for each of those, just go on your chart. You might need to use your glossary or the chapter to figure out what the natural class is and use your chart to find the actual sounds, okay? Use brackets to write them. All right, the next problem is 14, and you're just doing the reverse. So they give you the sounds, and then you need to tell what the natural class is. So A, they give you the sound R and L. So R and L are a natural class. And so what's kind of interesting about this is that you know, R and L are very related sounds, even though we might not think of them that way. But if you think of some learners of English for whom R and L are very difficult to distinguish and to learn how to pronounce, so they often get interchanged in some varieties of learner English. And that's because they are very closely related in how they're pronounced. So R and L, if we look on our chart in the column, they are alveolar. And then we can see that one's a lateral liquid and one's a retroflex liquid. So we could say the biggest kind of category is that they're both liquids, right? So we're going to call them alveolar liquids. So you're finding the largest, okay, last segment. I'm hopefully going to edit all of this together, but number 15 on page 144, identify what types of phonological rules apply in each of the following derivations. So you need to use the phonetic transcription here because otherwise it won't make sense, right, to see what the difference in pronunciation is. So we've got little. So this is my favorite example, right? We don't say little. We don't pronounce the t in this word. We pronounce it duh, kind of duh, and that is the flap. So they're giving you in phonetic they're giving you the phonemic form. So the slash brackets is the phoneme, which is what we think we're saying. It's what our mental representation is. And then they're giving you the phonetics form, what we actually pronounce. And so that has the flap in it. I do this while I'm talking, so I kind of keep up with myself. So that's what they're showing you in the book. Okay, so here we've got the t, and here we've got the flap d. All right, so what causes this t to actually be pronounced by American English speakers as a d, right? So why do we change the sound? And the reason, it really has to do with economy of speech. It takes effort to say little to pronounce the t. And so we have a phonological rule in English that if a voiced stop like voiceless stop like this occurs between a vowel, two vowels, or a vowel and a liquid, which is l, right? Then we're going to turn this consonant into a flap. We're going to turn t into a flap sound. So the rule is, and this is only for t. This doesn't happen, for duh, it's going to stay duh. For bubble, it stays buh, right? It doesn't change into anything else. It's just for t. So we're going to say what the phonological rule is that t, the phoneme t becomes d, flap, between two vowels. I know that l is not exactly a vowel, but it is kind of like a vowel. So little, it sounds like there's a vowel there. So it is the general rule. The easiest rule is between two vowels, but you could say between two vowels or two vowels and a liquid. Okay. So that's what they're looking for. We can try one more of these. Because, let's try late bell. Late bell. Okay, so let's put it in a sentence so we can actually pronounce it. So I heard the late bell. I heard the late bell. I actually feel like I don't pronounce anything at the end of late and just go to bell, but let's look at what they have. So late bell. So phonemically, this is what we think we're saying. This is the representation in our minds. But what we actually say is late bell. So the, So this sound, the t, becomes p. So that sounds a little weird, but if we say it quickly, maybe we can hear late bell, late bell. So we could do a little bit of a closure at the end of late bell and put that p there. And this would be called assimilation. So the final sound on late becomes more like the first sound that follows it. And so what's similar about these two sounds is that they're both bilabial stops, right? So the t, which is alveolar, becomes bilabial. It stays voiceless, so t and p are both voiceless, but it becomes bilabial to be closer to the b sound in bell. So it's kind of like your mouth is getting ready to say b, right? So because it's hard to say late bell, because the two sounds are farther apart from each other in your mouth, right? Then your mouth is kind of already moving towards this sound, so it goes late bell. So this is called a process of assimilation in phonology. Okay, we do this all the time, right? We don't pronounce the actual sounds, we kind of run them all together or change them to make it easier to say. Everybody does it. All right, so go through those and see if you can figure out what's happening. I'm not looking for a formal rule, but just any description of what you think the sound change is and why it occurs. And the chapter should help you with that, because they do talk about the different phonological rules that can occur. So I do suggest going back and reading that section in the chapter before you try to answer all of these. All right, I think that's it for this week. Let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to meet in office hours to go through some of these. I hope it's fun, at least maybe a little bit enlightening. Like, I never thought of this and I never saw that this was happening. That's really what you're supposed to get out of a linguistics class. Sorry, I'm a little disorganized today, but we're getting there. We're almost done with all of this stuff. So, I will be in touch with you over the next week or so and look forward to seeing your assignments. Okay.